Yo, what's going on, everyone? Today we're going to watch, so guys, an update on a major severe weather and tornado outbreak that we're expecting to strike portions of the Mississippi River Valley. We've been in the middle of a we're talking extremely active stretch of severe weather, but I've got all the details coming right up. So thank you for joining me here on this Thursday evening. We have a lot to talk about in this video. We have to break down all of the latest information on our upcoming major severe weather and tornado outbreak that's going to be impacting Arkansas once again. And the reason why I'm saying specifically Arkansas is because Arkansas has been absolutely hammered by severe weather for the past 2 weeks. And yesterday we did have another major tornado outbreak, a high risk, the second high risk already this year, and we are just now getting into April, and you can even see as we take a look at your current radar starting out here that we do have a little bit of some leftover convections. We did have a 10% hatch tornado threat for the same area here, as we just saw another round of severe storms. With multiple tornadoes being reported today, as well as very strong damaging winds and very large destructive hail. So another big day just now starting to kind of taper off here into the evening hours, but still a lot of activity kind of left over there into portions of the Mississippi River Valley, definitely over towards places like Arkansas and Tennessee and Kentucky, which, again, those are the states that have been really hammered by severe weather over the past couple of days. You can see also with our surface low that we have seen a couple of areas here across the northern plains and the mountainous regions of the western United States with some severe strong severe thunderstorms. We have been seeing some special weather statements here and there, so make sure you are, seeking shelter in a sturdy building if you do get put under one of those. But that's pretty much all the activity we've got going across the country as of right now. So we move over here to your alerts, and you can see we are very, very quiet for most of the country, although you can see the middle part of the country is still very active. You do have a very large flood watch extending all the way from Ohio down through portions of the Ohio and Mississippi River Valley, all the way up into northeastern Texas here. And into Arkansas, we are expecting historically dangerous flooding, as we are expecting, obviously, a ton of rainfall for the past couple of days. We'll get to that at the end of the video, but we are expecting multiple inches. I mean, we're talking in some places higher than a foot of rainfall between now and the next couple of days here. But this is a PDS, a particularly dangerous situation flood watch for portions of Arkansas, just because of how extreme this situation is. So that's why we really need to make sure everyone is taking this seriously. But we currently have flash flood warning extending all the way from southern Kentucky through western Tennessee into northern Mississippi. Remember that these flash flood warnings are usually issued for only a couple counties here and there whenever there's excessive rainfall, but this is issued as if it's like a flood watch. I mean, this is such a huge area. I mean, this is at least 50 counties under flash flood warnings here. So a ton of flooding concerns ongoing right now. You can see we also do have some severe thunderstorms out here, with even a tornado watch in effect for northern counties of Mississippi and portions of Arkansas there for the leftovers of that severe weather event. So again, still some activity heading into tonight, but tomorrow is when the next really big round of severe weather comes in. So I do want to go over here to this video from Courtney Jackson in Lake City, Arkansas, where yesterday we did have a violent tornado, likely violent tornado, ripped through this city here. It was a long tracking high-end EF3, which, again, it's been preliminary rated as EF3, but what we're talking about with this is that if you notice, it is very rural Arkansas, so it likely did not have enough kind of homes to inflict damage on, as there were multiple slabbed homes. So this likely had wind speeds that were in the range of EF4 to EF5, but the damage might not have been that extreme. So we're going to take a look at this video here to show you guys how impressive this wedge tornado really was. So again, you can hear in the background those eerie tornado sirens. Look at how fast the vortex is rotating, and you can even see the mesocyclone, the whole mesocyclone rotating. Absolutely unbelievable video here. So I do want to thank Courtney Jackson for allowing us to use this video, but that is just an absolutely unbelievable video amongst many others, which again there are many videos of this tornado that are just absolutely insane. But we go back to the Storm Prediction Center. We look at tomorrow's outlook. You can see we have a level 4 out of 5 moderate risk for severe weather once again into portions of northeast Texas, far western Oklahoma, northern Louisiana, and portions of western Arkansas. So again, this is a moderate risk for severe weather at level 4 to 5 risk. This also does include a small enhanced risk, a pretty large slight risk, and then obviously that marginal risk surrounding all of these areas. But you can see it is driven by a 15% hatch tornado threat. So we have a significant chance of seeing strong and long track tornadoes within 25 miles of any given location inside of that moderate risk. And you can even see still that 10% hatch threat included in that enhanced risk, and then obviously the 5% and 2% for the surrounding areas. This is going to be uh, a major outbreak of tornadoes. Usually, when you get a moderate risk and a 15% hatch, that's when you're talking about the potential for a significant tornado outbreak. And really, what this means is that the confidence in many supercells capable of producing strong tornadoes is rapidly increasing. That's what we're seeing here. But if you look at the wind threat, it is relatively low. It is just about a 15% non-hatched, which is pretty low considering that this is a moderate risk, which does mean that the storm mode will most likely be uh, discrete, meaning that you're probably going to get supercells, individual supercells that fire in this area, and those individual supercells will likely have the main hazards of producing large hail and tornadoes rather than straight line damaging winds. So that's why we do have a 15% hatched because, or a 15% non-hatched because the wind threat will be relatively elevated, but it's not as high as past days. So again, anywhere in that moderate, enhanced, or slight risk of the 15%, and then the 5% is for those areas that are in the marginal risk. And then finally, the hail threat, it is a 30% hatch. So again, this is for the area that will likely be seeing those widespread discrete supercells that will be capable of producing very large hail, likely up to 3 inches in diameter here. I would not be surprised if we saw hail even larger than that. But there's another hatch zone down here in central Texas where we could definitely see some higher or some bigger hail down here. So this is another area that I do want to watch out for. But overall, this is expected to be another pretty major and significant severe weather and tornado outbreak. But I really am worried for those areas in the 15% hatch tornado threat. And I will talk about why, because if you look, the summary from the Storm Prediction Center says several clusters of strong to severe storms are possible from central Texas across the Arklatex and into the lower Ohio Valley Friday and Friday night. The greatest threat for tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds will be from the Arklatex across western Arkansas, including potential for strong to potentially intense tornadoes. So you're talking EF3 plus. And if you look, they do say with the synopsis here that the reorientation of the frontal boundary should be favorable for supercells with the potential for large hail, some 2+ inches in diameter, damaging wind gusts, and tornadoes, with some potentially being EF3 plus. Which again, the last time they used that wording was our high risk yesterday. So this is something that we really need to watch out for, and they are talking about how messy storm mode could limit the longevity of any of these supercells and tornadoes, but even with the limited duration, the environment supports a tornado threat. So they do say that higher probabilities may be needed in future products, meaning basically that they are considering upgrading this to a high level 5 out of 5 risk for severe weather, which is when we are completely confident in a very widespread and destructive tornado outbreak. So I'm not going to sit here and say that that's going to happen, but I am saying that because the Storm Prediction Center is using that wording, that it is very, very possible. I do want to mention on day 3 we have another enhanced risk. It is a 30% hatch probabilistic kind of risk area here, so this is going to be something we're going to have to watch out for on Saturday. So we're going to have to talk about that. And then we have another risk on day 4, which is currently a slight risk. We'll also have to talk about that as we get into Sunday. But for the foreseeable future, as we get through the rest of this big stretch of severe weather, that's pretty much the last of what we're going to be talking about, at least for the next week or so. But let's get right into the kind of full breakdown here of this event. So we start out here by taking a look at your HRRR. You can see a lot of our convection still kind of left around out here into portions of Tennessee and into Arkansas. But this is as we're getting into tomorrow. This is as we're getting into about 10 a.m. You can already see a ton of thunderstorms already firing here across western Arkansas, and this line will likely be capable of producing, again, damaging wind gusts, but also that tornado threat. And you can see even some updraft felicity tracks showing up there. But the HRRR really has a lot of kind of embedded supercells that will likely be capable of producing strong rotation and tornadoes, which again I think is something that we did definitely see similar to yesterday's outbreak, where we did get that first initial cluster of supercells to produce tornadoes, but those prefrontals did also end up producing the violent tornadoes. So if we do see prefrontals with that first round, which the HRRR is hinting at the possibility of that happening, then that's where we're going to have the potential to see strong tornadoes, and I'll show you why in a second. But the main kind of line of activity comes later in the day here. This is as we're getting to Friday evening. This is about uh, 9 p.m. So we're getting into the evening and overnight hours here. Look at all of these semi-discrete supercells charging across this region. I mean, this is a widespread severe weather outbreak that you've got on your hands here, because this, even if these supercells, even if all of them are not producing tornadoes, you're still going to have widespread damaging large hail and even some damaging wind gusts packed into these storms. So there will be a pretty widespread coverage here of these strong to potentially dangerous severe thunderstorms here as we get into the evening and overnight hours of tomorrow. But the thing I'm concerned about is if these storms become more discrete and these cells start rotating. And these cells continue to charge across the region before they kind of congeal into this more linear mode. And we do see actually a very significant damaging wind threat with some isolated tornadoes here across portions of Kentucky as we get overnight tomorrow night into Saturday morning. But this is definitely showing the potential for definitely some strong to localized damaging wind gusts across portions of the Ohio Valley as the leftovers of this event kind of continue to sweep off to the east. So again, this will be a very significant outbreak, but if these cells do remain more discrete and they start to rotate, that's where you're going to get that main tornado threat from. So tomorrow, late tomorrow morning into the early afternoon, you're going to get your first initial round of thunderstorms, likely going to produce damaging winds, large hail, and an isolated tornado or two. But here comes the main round as we get into the evening. This is as we're getting to the dinner time and the overnight hours. As you're starting to go to bed, this is when your tornado warnings will start really popping off. This is where you're going to have the potential to see long tracking, strong, and potentially significant tornadoes, and these will likely continue in the overnight hours. And then that moves off to the east, and then your second outbreak comes as we get into Saturday, which we'll have to talk about in a future update. All right, so that's the hour by hour on the HRRR for your precipitation. Now we look at your significant tornado parameter, which basically shows us where the HRRR is highlighting the best chances for significant tornadoes based off of the ingredients and the environment in the fixed layer of the atmosphere here. So if we take a look, you can see as that same time frame kind of comes into play here, that dinner time to early or excuse me late night time frame comes in, you can see all of these kind of bubbly spots here where you see these STP values really start to spike. This is where you're going to have the potential to see strong to long tracking tornadoes. So we click for a sounding here and take a look at what environment we're talking about on top of one of these. All right, that was pretty contaminated sounding, but if we look right here, you can see the STP does get up to about a 6.5. So again, that possible hazard type is a tornado, very elongated hodograph. And if we take a look, you can see your effective layer STP is at a 10. So this is almost completely maxed out, which is something that you very rarely see at all. But you can see a ton of significant hail analog showing up here with also a lot of supercell analog showing up as well. Look at that storm slinky, almost turned 80 degrees. This is a very textbook sounding here. You can see that steep drop off in your dew points between the 700 to 500 millibar kind of layer of the atmosphere. So again, very strong signal for large hail and obviously tornadoes. So that kind of gives you guys the idea of a classic supercell. But that surface base cape is very, very high, and the effective layer shear is almost at 70 knots. So this is definitely, I would say, an outbreak supporting kind of environment that you've got here. And then you can even see even more impressive and higher STP values up into Tennessee. With again that effective layer STP just so high out there. But this entire area will likely have the potential for supporting discrete and semi-discrete supercells that will obviously be capable of producing those long-tracking and significant tornadoes. I'm very concerned about anywhere that you have these orange, these reds, and especially those purples and brown shades. All right, so very concerning look from the HRRR as we see these overnight runs come in. And then finally, that starts to kind of taper off as we get into the overnight hours and the early morning hours of Friday into Saturday morning. So we take a look at what's driving this threat. We actually can look at our bulk shear here. So this measures how strong the wind shear we have, which is obviously the stronger the shear, the more kind of higher the chance and the easier these storms, the easier it's going to be for these storms to start rotating and producing tornadoes. So you can see as that main line of tornadic activity in those supercells moves through, you can see isolated areas of 60 to maybe even as high as 80 knots of shear. It starts to overlap those supercells. So what this is going to bring is this is going to bring the threat for obviously changing heights with wind direction and wind speeds. So this is going to enable these storms to start developing rotation and that classic hook echo. And those photographs are going to become they're going to become curved there. So this will enable these supercells to start developing that rotation and then eventually start producing tornadoes. So the fact that we see this very, very high while also overlapping, obviously, the very high STP values and where those supercells are going to be, this concerns me a lot. So that's why that we do have that moderate risk in effect from the Storm Prediction Center. But another thing we quickly look at is our surface-based cape, which basically shows us how much thunderstorm juice and how much kind of instability we have in the atmosphere. You can see as we get in the afternoon and evening hours, look how high your cape levels are. This is your surface-based cape. This is ranging from 3,000 to almost 5,000 joules per kilograms. Or so this is something that you very rarely see in this region. I mean, even this time of year, this is early April. We should not be seeing cape levels this high. But the amount of instability the atmosphere is going to have tomorrow is going to be primed for tornadoes and long tracking supercells here. So that's why we are very concerned about tomorrow, and it really takes a while until those cape levels finally die down there. But a lot of instability looking very likely for tomorrow. And then finally, we do look at the Weather Prediction Center's day one excessive rainfall outlook. You can see we have a high 70% chance of flash flooding within 25 miles of a given location for today, for tomorrow, and for Saturday. So for all of the three outlooks here, from day one to day three, we have a high risk for flash flooding in effect. And what they're saying is that the overall forecast philosophy is on track, and only minor spatial adjustments have been made to categorical areas. The high risk remains in effect for Arkansas, Tennessee, and Kentucky, where we are expecting, again, very, very heavy rainfall. But what they are saying for portions of Arkansas is that we could be talking about a potentially historic and catastrophic flash flooding event because we are expecting so many different severe weather outbreaks to occur in the same exact area within such a short amount of time that all of this is going to kind of build up, and you're eventually going to see so many rivers overflow their banks, and you're just going to see very, very intense to potentially catastrophic flash flooding. So even if you don't get impacted by severe weather, there's still a very high chance that you're going to encounter flooded roads. So please turn around, don't drown, and make sure that you are staying off those roadways if you encounter flooded roads, because there will be flash flood emergencies, and there's going to be many flash flood warnings. So if you do get put under a flash flood warning, make sure that you turn around and don't drown. So that's all I got for you guys. Thank you all for tuning in. I will see you guys in the next video. So again, stay safe out there. Make sure you are staying extra weather aware. Have you multiple ways to receive warnings? Because again, we've seen what's happened in the past. Yesterday, we saw violent tornadoes. We really need to make sure that we can limit the amount of fatalities and the people that are affected and hurt by the severe weather. So that's all I got for you guys. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'll see you guys in the next video.